Today we've got the Yamaha DGX 670 against the Roland FP-E50. We are going to be doing a side-by-side comparison and walkthrough of these two instruments with my favorite points of each. There's certainly some crossover here because of the arranger functionality, but largely these are two very different beasts. Let's get started on this right away. The DGX 670 is a pretty pro-level arranger keyboard that exists to satisfy the arranger community who wanted an 88-note keybed. But its heart and soul really is coming from the arranger or a kind of a lightweight workstation type of functionality. Whereas the FP-E50 is more coming from the stage piano world. This is really kind of just a bloated FP-30X with way more arranger functionality on it. But it's essentially catering to the professional player community who needs a stage piano with some arranger functionality. So it's like they're coming from two different places and they've both moved towards one another a little bit, and now there is some overlapping spheres going on here. So we're going to talk about both separately, and I'm going to give you a very quick walkthrough of what the 670 is all about, and then I'm going to take you through the 5 reasons I really like the 670. So first, the areas of functionality. The DGX 670 is equipped with an internal song player that acts as well as a 16-track sequencer. It's a little on the lightweight side when it comes to sequencing. People who are used to some pretty intense MIDI editing on the sequencing side, you'll want to stick to your workstations or your DAWs. Nonetheless, you do have a sequencer in here and it lets you build a fairly simple sequence pretty quickly. You can also jumpstart that process by recording an arrangement into that 16-track sequencer and then modify and edit from there. And to record a new song, you're just literally going to hit the record and play buttons together, and then you can arm the individual tracks by simply hitting record and holding record, and then hitting the track that you want to record on, and give yourself a little metronome. And you can save it, and so on and so forth. So that kind of gives you a quick flavor of what you can do with the sequencer. Now, the style and arranger engine here is kind of the centerpiece of this instrument. And it is also pretty easy to access and has a wide variety of styles to choose from. You've got the categories laid out right here, and you can really easily go in and select the one you want. There's also an option here if you want to have kind of a one-touch linkage between both the styles as well as the variation within those styles. You can do that, and so it's going to do things like select the appropriate tempo, select appropriate solo instruments over that, and so that is what this looks like. And then if you switch to a completely different style, you're going to have a completely different tempo, and as I said, it's going to change those sounds. Now, if you don't want that, it's really easy. You just unselect that and you have full control over what you want. Using the simple button quickly reduces the accompaniment track just to bass and drums. and the break button inserts a more elaborate fill than simply pressing the variations. Quality of the fills and the control you have over those variations is really straightforward. It's easy to do, and you've also got the ability to mix any of those parts and either turn them on or turn them off. There's a lot of settings that you can get in there and control exactly how it's interacting with you. There are several modes in which you can select how it's going to follow your left hand. Moving over here, you now have Piano Room, which gives you the ability to just really get into kind of a piano-centric mode. You can change the piano type, you can adjust the lid position, and change the environment. And then there's the resonance engines as well that you can get in there, which is the VRMs. And then finally you've got the voice areas where you can get in and select all of these voices. So you've got things like your kind of flagship CFX Grand. You'll see that there are also a few in there that have some kind of smaller subtitles on that, like S Art. And in a lot of cases that means that it's basically like a velocity triggered patch where there's some different affectations in there depending on how you're playing the instrument. So you can hear on the guitar, for example, that when you're headed in an up direction, you'll kind of like hear the sliding going on between the frets, which is interesting. So there's sort of like an extra humanizing dimension that they've added to some of these voices. And of course into the synth pads. Now behind any of those individual voices, you have the ability to add some DSP effects. I can understand why it kind of gets missed a little bit. They're not in the most obvious place. You'll see on the voice selection window that you'll see a button that says voice set, which I assume means voice settings. And if you go in there, that's where you're going to have the option to select what DSP is being used on any one of the three parts. So there's a pretty deep effects engine here that you can access and really play around with for people who love doing that. And you know, I'll admit, who doesn't love doing that sometimes? So that's a really quick overview of the 670. And so circling back now on the things I really liked after having spent a significant amount of time in front of this instrument. Number one, the full manual control over every aspect of the arranger that's going on. You've got easy button control for all four variations. You've got the break button, which can be a lot of fun. Your intro and ending, which is kind of standard, but again, really clearly indicated. I love the simple button. I wound up using that more often than I expected myself to. I like the fact that you can dump that into the 16-track sequencer and add to it or edit to that. And then the one-touch link is surprisingly useful. Number two, the effects engine is solid, and this is not something to be taken for granted for people who are really wanting to play around with this specific part of the machine. Sometimes you can get a lot of signal degradation, or the quality of the tone starts to really break up when you start adding all of these effects because there's just not enough processor power behind it. In this particular case, the quality of the sound, whether it's wet or dry, is really great, and the selection and the ease of which you can get in and edit those once you know where to find it is fantastic. I really enjoyed the effects engine. Number three, the screen. It's bigger, it's color, It's a higher resolution, and they have used the screen really effectively to get information on there. I have a few issues when it comes to navigating some of the things on the screen, but the screen itself is really enjoyable to look at. Having used both back and forth, I suspect the screen is going to be something that comes up for a lot of people. The Roland is not as pretty to look at. You kind of have to get over that if you're going to fall in love with the Roland. Once you're there, I find that the Roland layout and its general intuitiveness to navigate is in some ways even better than the Yamaha. But it is monochrome, and so that does give it, aesthetically anyway, a slightly more dated look, setting aside practical functionality. Number 4, the quantity and selection of the arrangement styles on the 670 are stellar. What's more, if you don't have one that's quite cutting it, I believe you can go onto Yamaha's website and purchase and download even more. So while I haven't found that there's a huge difference in the quality from a sound standpoint or even a musicality standpoint between these two, certainly the variety just gives you more ways to enjoy this instrument. And finally, number 5, it's a small thing, but not really. I sincerely enjoyed, I don't know how many sounds there are, but there's a few sounds in there that have those extra kind of velocity triggered elements to them, whether it be some extra fret noise on the guitar or a little extra growl from a saxophone. When you find them and you get it working, it just adds that extra layer of authenticity that can really put you in the moment. So let's now go to the FP-E50. The very easiest way to think about this instrument is basically in 4 parts. The first is you've got a stage piano, which is sort of a halfway between an FP30X and an FP60X. It's got the tone engine that's a lot closer to the 60X in terms of its editability on the Supernatural engine, all that kind of stuff. But the speaker config and the form factor are a little closer to the 30X. So is the weight, by the way. So to start with, this is going to have all of the same basic sounds that you can expect on the FP30X and FP60X. So for example, you can start right on acoustic piano and everything that says SN stands for Supernatural. And you can keep going through the entire category. This feels to me like all about the variety of tones and the richness of a lot of those tones. And we can get into reed organ, synth pad with strings. Because of course, now we're starting to take advantage of that Zen core. You've got solo brass, ensemble brass, wind, flute, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So the second section is going to be the arranger section, and this operates in a lot of ways the same as the Yamaha did. If we get back to our home screen, fundamentally you've got a couple of options. Here you're going to be picking from approximately 100 options, and they're divided up into rhythm categories or accompaniment style categories. So we've got the categories are pop, ballad, dance, Latin, R&B, rock, traditional, contemporary, jazz, world, and then piano style. I find that the R&B as well as the pop are particularly good and fashioned after songs which we all super recognize. Like the Cynical 8-beat is actually just the Billie Eilish thing. Now here's a couple of differences with how this operates versus the Yamaha. You don't have the ability to go in and individually edit the volumes or mute control on all of those parts. However, you aren't without any control. You have the option of turning on assignable wheel mode, and in assignable wheel mode, the second wheel actually acts as a balance control between the drums and the other accompaniment parts. So if we start that again, so now we're basically just down to like bass and drums, and we can fade that in. So in a way you can simulate what Yamaha is doing with the brake as well as what they're doing with being able to mix. It's not quite as intricate as what you can get on the Yamaha. This is definitely more of like an on-stage, on-the-fly kind of control. That's a nice compromise between easy real-time control of some of those options. Another aspect that Roland adds to this that Yamaha kind of doesn't really have is the idea of a chord sequencer built into this. It's going to give you the ability to play over predetermined sets of chords. And if you press and hold select, you're actually going to be able to see those chords like a lead sheet. The chord sequencer is sort of an interesting go-between between having to do a full sequence if you want to have something custom versus having to entirely control it real time with your left hand. The other nice thing about the chord sequencer is you can build those chord sequencers off the instrument, actually inside like a standard CSV spreadsheet, and then re-import it. So if you're going to do like a whole bunch of tunes all at once, it's actually really efficient to do that and load like 40 or 50 songs in here. If you're going to go do a jazz gig, you wanted to, you know, load a bunch of standards in there. Very, very easy to do. Now, one more thing that I will say about the arranger before we just move on to some of the recording options is Yamaha uses the one-touch option in order to link sounds and tempos and accompaniment styles together. Roland doesn't have that, but what Roland does have are scenes, and there's a number of scenes that are pre-saved onto here, which basically links up the chord sequence, tone selection, as well as the accompaniment style. So if we go into scenes, you can see that all of these are actually matched in name to both the name of the rhythm as well as the name of the chord sequence. So if we're using this, so basically scenes is functioning, at least using the presets, like Yamaha was doing with the one touch. Now scenes can also be used to capture any number of parameters that you edit and have pre-selected. So scenes are really where you're going to be doing kind of your registrations. Then we move on to the recorder, and this is the way they've done this at first was a little odd to me. They don't have a multi-track recorder, but what they do have in essence is a step audio overdub recorder. Let me explain. So if you go to, and let's just get back to piano. So if we go over here, or let's get out of there and let's go to song. So we have some preloaded songs on board, but really what we want to do is we want to record an audio song. And so we're going to record a new one. And you can see that it says new there. So we're going to give ourselves a metronome. And we're going to record. So now, here's where we have some interesting options. If we go to record again, and we're going to, instead of new be the recording mode, we're going to go overdub. It now asks me what file I want to overdub over top of it, and I'm going to select the one that I just did. And I'm going to add, I don't know, say I'm going to do just a nice little Rhodes. So we're going to go in here, overdub again, and here we go. So now I've effectively added 2 tracks together. Let's say I'm happy with that and I now want to add a third, like something like a bass. So let's call up a bass. And so on and so forth. As well, you could start by actually recording a full arrangement and then adding a few things onto that, such as a voice or whatever you wanted. So you do have this, what on the surface feels like a very basic recorder that can actually sort of disguise itself as pretty capable multi-track as long as you plan for it in advance. So again, just like some of the other controls, it's not as deep and not as sophisticated as the Yamaha, but in terms of a super quick on the fly and sort of easier to access than some of the Yamaha functionality, it's a nice kind of medium compromise. The very last thing is it does have a microphone input as the Yamaha does, but vocoder and harmonizer, which is 2 things that the Yamaha does not have available to it. It's got 11 watts per side in terms of its speaker output. They're only down facing, but they have EQ'd those so that you're getting a little more highs, so it does compensate a little bit for that. And you've got 1/4-inch outputs as well as all of your USBs. It's got Bluetooth MIDI as well as Bluetooth audio. The Yamaha has Bluetooth audio but does not have the Bluetooth MIDI connection. So now let's get to the 5 things I really like about the FP-E50. Number 1, it's unbelievably simple. The menu is mercifully easy to navigate. There's only a few items in there. Virtually everything is only 1 button away. And some of the more advanced functionality is literally available to you with just a couple of wheel touches. Number 2, the piano action. This PHA-4 feels great, and for the price, I still say is the best action that you can get on the market for under $1,000. Number 3, the Chord Sequencer isn't nearly as sophisticated as what you could potentially do with the 16-track sequencer over on the Yamaha, but it is quick and it is a really easy way to get a long chain of songs pre-built if you want to have the option of using both hands to play over a looped song. Number 4, it's pretty light. At 37 pounds, it's a clean 10 pounds lighter than what you get on the Yamaha. This is intended to be portable, and you can tell that everything about this has been thought of and conceived of with a gigging stage musician in mind. And then finally, number 5, Zencore. If I'm right, and this instrument really is targeted towards gigging musicians who already were in the zone of using kind of stage pianos in and around this price point where the focus is like the action, the piano tone, things like that, then the Zencore really is going to make sense as a major feature, as a major focus, because there is a huge user community that's constantly building new Zencore sounds. It's an open source synth architecture where you can get in, you can download the software synth onto a DAW, do all the manipulating, export the sounds, tons of stuff. Plus lots of presets to download from Roland off their Roland Cloud. I think it's over 100 packs that are available for the FP-E50, and they're super lush, and as a sound source they're right at the top of what you could expect at a professional level. So we're kind of back to where we started. These 2 instruments are very different. This is definitely coming from an arranger background, and it's so clear to me that Yamaha has intended this for as an at-home machine, probably for people with some level of familiarity with arranging. The action in terms of the 88-note world is a little bit of an afterthought because it's Yamaha's most basic, but I think for the community that this is being marketed towards, I think it's probably totally fine. Over here, we've got something that's definitely portable, and again, I think this is more geared towards people who are using stage pianos on a stage who wanted a little more depth than something, say, that the ES920 was giving them, or what you could get out of the Roland app. This is a huge leap forward from what you can get out of any of the arranger functionality on any of those other boards that I just mentioned. And there are some simple but really kind of genius things that they've done here to make it easy to use and give you just enough that you can have some fun with some of those arranging functions. My name is Stu Harrison. This has been Miriam Pianos on YouTube, and we will see you again soon.